Please put a yes in the chat if I'm audible. All right, we will start shortly. Please wait for a few more minutes, then a few more people join. Okay, I think we will start. Our Dr. Suresh Namboothiri has joined. Good evening once again. Thank you all for registering and attending this 1 week national level online faculty development program on inter-knowledge systems, IKS, organized by the UGC Malawiya Mission Teacher Training Center, UGC MMTC, Gauhati University, and the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of Gauhati University, Gauhati, Assam, in association with the IPSR Solutions Limited. Today, we would like to welcome Dr. Suresh Namboothiri, who's the Director of IPSR Solutions Limited and SPR Technologies, Pune. And also, we would like to welcome all the FDP resource persons, managers, directors, principals, vice principals, representatives from management, HODs, IQC coordinators, and all faculty members. Now, about this FTP, this is a 1 week FTP program with live timings from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Today is actually our third day of the FTP. Now, the fee for LMS access and processing of certificate for this FTP is ₹500. And you can pay that online to the account details that I've shared in the chat already. Okay, and you need to share the transaction details to the WhatsApp number also. Okay, now all the participants who have made the payment will receive the LMS access, the video recording for all the days, and the provision to download your FTP completion certificate. Now, the procedure for receiving the certificate will be informed to you towards the end of the FTP. If you are unable to attend any of the live sessions, the recording will be available in the LMS. We have shared the LMS access details through email to those who have shared the payment proof through WhatsApp till yesterday. If you have shared the details today, you will receive the LMS access details later in the day or by tomorrow. If you have any trouble in attending the WebEx online session, you can also join through the YouTube live, the link of which I've put in the chat. I'll just share it once again. Now, my name is Sijin Jacob George. I'm working as Global Relations Manager with IPSR Solutions Limited, and I will be the event moderator. Now, before we go on to the session for today, if you all could please turn on your videos for a few seconds, we would like to take some screenshots for our documentation purpose. Yes, please turn on your videos for a few seconds. You can turn it off after that. All right, I think you can turn off your videos. We will move on to the FDP session for today. The topic today is going to be reclaim and recognition. This is going to be delivered by Dr. Suresh Namboothiri, Director at IPSR Solutions Limited and SPA Technologies. Dr. Suresh Namboothiri is a product design specialist with over 30 years of industry experience. He has contributed to automobiles, consumer electronics, home appliances, and telecommunications. Formerly the COO of Tata Motors, he played a key role in developing India's first car, the Indica, and has designed over 200 products, many pioneering in India. A seasoned interview for senior engineering and management roles, he has assessed over 12,000 candidates, driving his research into Indian engineering education. Collaborating with global industry experts and Ivy League University, he led a pan-India ethnographic study to identify systemic challenges and solutions. Currently, as director at IPSR Solutions Limited and SPA Technologies Pune, he mentors institutions including IITs and NITs focusing on employability, outcome-based education, design thinking, and AI in education. A researcher, educator, and corporate consultant, he actively engages in faculty development and industry academia collaborations. He has authored 7 books on OBE, quality attainment series on 7 disciplines, which includes the concepts of IKS and another 5 books on generative AI. Over to you, Suresh.
Okay. Yeah. Good evening, Sijin sir, and welcome to all. So today and the coming 3 days, we are going to discuss about Indian knowledge system. And you know that this is a vast subject. So without any introduction, let us start this. And when the time comes and contextually, we will discuss everything related to Indian knowledge system. So I want to tell you before that, as Sijin was explaining, I am a product design specialist and I am basically an engineer. But one thing I wanted to tell you, every one of you, is that for the 60 plus years, I have been living an Indian knowledge system life. So that is a main motivation for me to sit here before you. When I look back, I really see that if I have developed a car, if I have developed a refrigerator, there was Indian knowledge system in that, because that was there in DNA and it really helped me. Each and every point, I am going to share you all those experiences here. Means how this helped me and how this is going to help each one of you, or how this can help. And most importantly, this particular program, we are going to speak this in a forward-looking way. Instead of speaking about past, we are going to really see that how to extract the insights and essence from the past and how to apply that in the for our future, because we are going to live in the future. So now let us start. Let me see this. I hope you can see a rectangle blue screen and there is a triangle in the center.
Yes, visible for me, sir.
Okay, it's visible. So let us start here.
Observe the stellar formations.
Yes, Professor.
The data is converging beautifully.
We are naming this particular program as Sthira Sukham Athyayanam. This is from Patanjali Yoga Sutra Sthira Sukham Asanam. And this is applied Indian knowledge system for an AI era. Therefore, we are going to speak something very special here. Let us focus on that. Just a minute, I have got a on technical difficulty.
Observe the stellar formations.
Yes, Professor. The data is converging beautifully.
Sir, did you pause the video?
Yes, I am starting now. Say, Namse, can you come here? See, actually, this taskbar has to go down. It's not going down. Okay, actually, therefore, I cannot see the button. Next button. Some taskbar setting is there for that.
No, it is gone. It is minimized. Your window is minimized.
Hmm?
No, it makes.
Okay, this is Sthira Sukham Athyayanam. Now let us go here. Let us see first of all what is IKS. I am going little fast because this is totally a 5 days program and we are compressing this for 8 hours. Therefore, I am not going to miss any point in this. We are going to speak the most important parts and let us see how to make the best use of this. Now, first of all, let us understand what is Indian knowledge system. For the last 4 to 5 years, Indian knowledge system is very popular among UGC and AICTC affiliated institutions because they have made it like a framework. Therefore, they are trying their best to popularize this. Now, first of all, let us see what is IKS. Means it's a description. Indian knowledge system encompasses systemized ancient disciplines and living community traditions. So this is what the main thing that is encompasses or focuses. And what is the scope? Interdisciplinary fields including arts, literature, agriculture, basic sciences, engineering, technology, means almost all spectrum. Then what is the modern relevance? It integrates timeless Indic wisdom, that is Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, with the contemporary systems for societal applications, fostering holistical development and innovation. This is what from NEP 2020 and MOE documentation. So more than what is Indian knowledge system, I think most important to see what it is not, because many people interpret Indian knowledge system in their own way. So let us see what exactly it is not. Therefore, we can proceed and we can see that exactly what we are going to speak. First of all, I wanted to tell you that Indian knowledge system is not about religion. So we are not going to speak religion here. Indian knowledge system is not about focusing any caste or any particular structure. For example, Indian knowledge system, it follows exactly Hindu, Buddhist and Jain system, because these are the three very important religion. They're deep rooted with their own ways of learning and their own culture. Therefore, we will be discussing all this. And if there are some examples given with something, some religion or some text, it is only because for that epistemological transfer requirement, that was one of the most suitable. That's all. That doesn't mean that we are supporting that particular concept. So and most importantly, it is not about anything, men, women, or 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 it is about locations, language, etc. Because according to NEP 2020 and according to Indian knowledge system, all Indian languages, Sanskrit and English, are part of this. Now let us come to other things which is in the documentation. That point number one is, we are not going to glorify our past. Means we are not going to sit and satisfy ourselves by saying that we were good, we were great. That is not our objective at all. And we are not going to speak that we were or we are victims. That is not the requirement. It is not mere glorification of the past or victimhood narrative. We are not going to do that. Second, it is not a separate, isolated subject. Means no one can take a master's degree in IKS. Means it is not a separate, isolated subject. It is something like a arithmetic, or it is something like a framework. We can use it. We can use it in any discipline we want to focus, we want to learn. And IKS is not anchored in Western epistemologies or methodologies for core IKS discipline. Then IKS is not vague or theoretical only. It means Ministry of Education, they specifically say that IKS is for practical application. It is futuristic. Therefore, you would have seen that the name given to this program itself, applied IKS for an AI era. We are going to speak about that, how to use the principles of Indian knowledge system, how we are going to use it for our future. That is, our future is an artificial intelligence entangled future. Therefore, how are we going to use this? It is not about rote preservation. It is not that we speak a lot about Indian knowledge system, then close our computers and go back to this. We are going to speak something very special here today, and the next 3 days we are going to experience that. Now, that is what Indian knowledge system is not about. Now, let us come to next. Vision of IKS is transforming India into a global superpower. Means it is by 2047, the present government wants India to become a developed country. You know that there is a plan that we have to become Vishwaguru. Vishwaguru in the sense, our tradition of the Nalanda and Takshashila stage, we have to go back. They were the Ivy League universities of that time. And how are we going to go that? Because if we are taking like this, There are only 21 years for 2047. Within that 2047, how we will get a developed country, how we can become a Vishwa Guru. So let us, during this course, we will definitely speak about that. And I will specifically say that where we are going to focus, in this program. So now, first of all, we are not going to speak history. This is not a history lesson. What you are about to encounter for 5 days, actually, this is a 5-day program, so that on this program, many places you will see 5 days, but we are going to speak this in 4 days. So today is day 1, and what you are about to encounter for 5 days is not a celebration of ancient India. It is not a collection of achievements to feel proud of, a history lecture with a Sanskrit citation. We are not going to do that. Now, let us see what we are going to do. Please, let me explain one important point. See, we are not going to say that because we did this 2000 years ago, we have to do it now. That is not the purpose of this particular series of sessions. We are not going to get into domain locked example. What is a domain lock example? Domain lock example is an example. For example, there is a particular concept applied in temple architecture. Immediately take that from temple architecture and immediately give that one to the civil engineering and architecture student. Then it is a failure, because it is called a domain locked example. We should not fall into that particular thing. I will tell you, for example, I lived 2 years in Japan, and in Japan, when I was working with the Panasonic, there I will tell you an example. This uh, uh, you know, Japanese war heroes, samurais, how they make their swords. That sword making technology, they didn't transfer to their steel industry. The sword making technology, what was the procedure they used? What was the cognitive, affective, psychomotor skills they applied there? They extracted those things and they applied. This is the same principle which went to Sony, which was an electronics manufacturer. Canon, they are a camera manufacturer. Similarly, Yamaha, they are a boat music instrument and a bike manufacturer. These are all gone there. I visited a watch manufacturing company called Citizen. Their main motto is journey is the reward. It is of Zen Buddhism. Journey is the reward is the principle used by Steve Jobs, and that is the core principle of Apple computers. Means these are all the things coming from tradition and religion. I am going to speak about that in detail when the time comes. Therefore, we are not going to speak about take this from here, do it there. It is not. We are going to distill the essence from various areas, and we are going to speak how that can be the juxtaposition, or that can be superimposed to various fields, or even to the AI, a new large language model or small language model, how to make. We can even go to that level. So we have discussed that it is not a historic lesson. Now let us say then what it is. A system level investigation into how a civilization generates, sustains, and renews itself. Every field you will encounter, mathematics, medicine, linguistics, architecture, governance, will be examined through only one question. This is what in this entire program we are going to speak, we are going to answer mainly one question. What kind of thinking produced this? What kind of thinking produced this? Not what India did, but how India thought at that time. And underneath that, the question that changes everything for the room we are sitting in right now, means we are all, what kind of educational system produces that kind of thinking? I repeat, what kind of educational system produces that kind of thinking, and how to build it? because we are all educators and faculty members, researchers, research scholars sitting here. The mandate for us is to do research and to develop our students so that they will develop our country and they will develop the society and the mankind. For that, what is required? We cannot take the 2000-year-old same technology and tell them that you do this. Our students are not going to do that. But if we are extracting the essence and telling them in a modern situation how to do, they are going to do that. Therefore, what kind of education system produces that kind of thinking and how to build it? That is what we are going to speak this throughout this program. And you will leave this program not with information about a knowledge tradition. This is what my guarantee to you. I am not going to tell you that you will carry some information and go, because in many of the programs I have seen, people carry and go. But here, what you are going to see exactly is that you will leave having been subjected to a process. These 4 days, you are going to get subject to a process. You know that this is a process. If you are attentive to this, if you are listening to this, you are going to undergo a process. It is not a webinar. It is not a faculty development program. What we are going to enter into a process. What you become on the other side of 5 days is the measure of whether it worked, not what you can recall. This is not Bloom's taxonomy's bottom level thing. We are going to higher order thinking, and what you cannot go back to not knowing. That is what we are going to do here. Let us go further. This is what our Sthira Sukham Athyayanam applied IKS for the AI era. Now, these are the 5 days. It is clear in front of you. Day 1, recognize. It is Pratyabhijna. Do we know what has always been ours? Do we know what has always been ours? This is the first days. Our objective is that let us recognize. Let us recognize. And while recognizing, we need to understand what type of people, what type of mind actually developed this. Second is day 2 is forge, or we call in Sanskrit tapas. What kind of people made all of that possible, and how were they made? Means how were those people made? If day 1 we were speaking about what are the things India produced, or ancient India produced, and if we are going to recognize that, now in the day 2 we are going to see that who are all those producers and how those producers got produced. How those producers got produced. That is what our day 2. What was that formation? What type of people means those people they got generated? It is not for 100 years, but for more than 2500 years, continuously this system developed such people. And what was the real formation principle? It's a very important and very interesting. Everything is with the deep research. And day 3. Day 3 is called exceed, Vikrama. V means beyond, Krama means step, means a person who is actually going beyond the step, beyond that. What is that exceed? You know that what we were not living with what we have, with what we have, we always exceeded with whatever we had. How did ancient Indians succeed where constraint seemed to prohibit it? How we broke constraints and how we traveled beyond that. That is what day 3. And in day 4, originate. If day 3 was telling how we succeed under constraints, day 4 is going to tell that with what we have, how we created what other people don't have. Means that is the real creation, originality. This is where did genuinely new ideas come from and what made them possible? what that origination possible. This is the place in which we are going to discuss about research and about publication, about how to create a new one, how to create new things. And day 5, regenerate. You know that what is regenerate? That is sustainability. Means if we don't return and we only take, it is extraction, it is looting. And how such a system existed for not centuries. So it is more than 3,000, 5,000 years it survived in the same way. And this is what we are going to speak here. How did this civilization sustain itself across millennia, and what does it of the future? Now let us go ahead from here. These are all these are all the 5 days program we are going to deliver in 4 days. Now first of all, today is day 1, that is recognized Pratyabhijna. That is the first day. We have got totally 4 sections. Section A, what is knowledge? What is knowledge system? Section B, what and why of Indian knowledge system. Section C, the war gallery, that one field, one punchline. Section D, the door into tomorrow. That is a handover for tomorrow. Now, first let us see like this. What is knowledge and what is knowledge system? So, this is what our section A of our day 1. But what is knowledge? Knowledge is not information stored in books. Knowledge is validated understanding that guides action. Information tells us what exists. Knowledge tells us what it means and how to act upon it. This knowledge, there is, so this is what knowledge. In the Indian intellectual tradition, knowledge was understood as pramana based, action guiding, continuously examined. Thus, knowledge was not a passive accumulation. It was tested, insight embedded. It was tested, insight embedded in life. Now, before we start, I request each one of you sincerely close your eyes and spend 10 seconds. Close your eyes for 10 seconds. Think of the most precise, elegant, or astonishing thing you have ever encountered in your own field of study. Anything which you have encountered in your field of study, it is precise, elegant, or astonishing thing. Now ask, where did it come from? I am not asking who discovered it or when somebody discovered it. I am only asking, 10 seconds you close and see what type of mind would have produced it and how was that mind made. These are the 2 questions. What type of mind would have produced it? See, I have got a cell phone, smartphone here. For example, I can think, what kind of a mind produced it? And how was that mind made? This is what we have to understand. I will tell you the reason why I am asking. So my request is that please think this. What kind of mind produced it and how was that mind made? Okay, I hope you would have got 10 seconds to think about that. And let me tell you one fact. You know, every one of us are having a smartphone, and most of us change our smartphone at least once in 3 years. And this tragedy is that India doesn't have a role in the development of this. And after 1990, we say we are a knowledge economy, but you just see our import and export. We will see that in knowledge economy, our contribution is almost nil. But at the same time, we are number 2 in publishing academic research papers. For all these things, we will find answer here in this coming days. Now, I am coming to one thing: data, information, knowledge, wisdom. It is called DIKW pyramid. One question changes everything. What is data? It's a raw signal, a number, a temperature, a measurement. Information: data arranged into a pattern. Temperature dropped 5 degrees Celsius. Knowledge: pattern understood in context. This signals monsoon onset. Wisdom: knowledge used for right action. Plant now, harvest before October. Here, most modern universities produce data and information. Some produce knowledge, almost none produce wisdom. Now the question: how does a civilization decide which of these four actually count as real? Means when we decide what is real and what is important for us, that is our destiny. Based on that, we are going to progress or not. What I was telling about this, from 1990, in this entire knowledge economy, we almost came empty handed. This was the last 35 years. This was the time always the knowledge was appreciated. Knowledge creation was appreciated. But if you go and see, go to Wikipedia, there's a page called list of inventors. There are more than 1,300 list of inventors are there. You can go there, you can see, and then you will get an answer for that. Now the question is whether we are going to happy with the data, whether they happy with the information. See this one, we are number 2 in academic paper publication, where it is data, information, knowledge, wisdom, where our papers stand. Okay, now based on that, we will get to know where we are going to progress. How does a civilization decide what is real? Every civilization answers this question: what is real, explicitly or not. This is little theory. I am going to come to something very practical within some 2-3 slides. Pramana, this method, the method by which you decide what counts as real, not a dictionary definition of valid knowledge. A living epistemological protocol means we, in Indian knowledge system, there are 3 gateways for primary gateways. Pratyaksha, that is direct perception, what you can observe. Anumana, that is inference, what you can reason to. Sabda, testimony, what trustworthy transmissions tell you. This is what. Now we are coming to what is knowledge system. Means we understand what is knowledge, but exactly what is knowledge system? A knowledge system is not a library, it is not a list of discipline. A knowledge system is an integrated ecology of knowing, where each field reinforces, disciplines, and checks the others. Means if I tell you Pythagoras theorem, that is knowledge, but if I create a ecosystem in an institution where where you feel like developing more theories like Pythagoras theorem, then that is a knowledge system. For example, in ancient India, grammar, that is Vyakarana, disciplined philosophy. Philosophy disciplined medicine. Medicine disciplined governance. Governance disciplined agriculture. Agriculture disciplined astronomy. Astronomy disciplined mathematics. Mathematics disciplined architecture. No field existed in isolation. Each was accountable to the others. Means these are all this is part of knowledge system. Now, let me tell you an interesting thing. Mathematics at the crest. In Indian knowledge system, if you see that, you will see it's a very important thing for mathematics. Means if you see the innovations and discoveries we made at that time, we are going to speak about that. Therefore, I am not going to speak about that one at this point. At this point, I will only tell the mathematics at the crest. As the crest is to the peacock and the jewel to the serpent, so mathematics stands at the crown of the Vedic sciences. Means it is the not Vedic for any science. So this is what mathematics is, the crest. Now let us see our approach to mathematics at that time, our approach to mathematics now. Now let me tell you an interesting thing. Go to any engineering college and see the first year students, see the second year students, see the third year student. Maximum failure. Maximum failure is happening in mathematics, not in engineering subjects. Failure happening in mathematics. Now, I will tell you 2-3 things about mathematics question papers. You take a mathematics question paper of a B.Tech first semester or third semester, you take the question paper. You see, you cannot find any meaning in that. There is no applied mathematics there. Solve, they give an equation. What is the physical manifestation of this? No one can understand this. And from where this question comes, no one can understand this. What is the relevance of this in mechanical engineering? No student is clear about that. In such a situation, what happened? They hate that subject. They don't love that subject because the way in which mathematics taught in most of the universities, it is not linked to the practicality. Now, that is the subject here in Indian knowledge system. We are saying, as the crest is to the peacock and the jewel to the serpent, so mathematics stands at the crown of the Vedic sciences. Okay. Now, there is something. Now, let me show you some interesting thing in this. Mathematics development. In Indian culture, you just see how mathematics got developed. Mathematics didn't come from mathematics. Mathematics came because of a reason. How this one, Indian civilization, it is ritual contributed to mathematics. How? Ritual contributed to mathematics. It is because of the geometry. It is because of it is Sulba Sutra. You know what happened? Certain things in yaga, it has to be round, and then it has to become a square with the same surface area. It has to become a triangle. In these ways, it contributed to geometry. Another thing is the language. Through language, mathematics has come. Through medicine, mathematics has come. Because for mathematics, there is a reason. And then you see Indian number system here. In Indian number system, decimal system, and there are 2-3 different number systems. All these systems are actually developed with a reason. So this reason is coming from our application of this in some other place. This is what exactly with the knowledge system. Why this matters today? A civilization that placed mathematics at the apex of its knowledge hierarchy was making a structural claim, not about calculation, but about the primacy of pattern recognition as the highest cognitive act. Now, come back to after 2500 years. Now we are now we are close to 26 years in the 21st century itself. Now, just to see in machine learning, in computer science, in artificial intelligence, what is the most commonly used? It is pattern recognition as the highest cognitive act. That was the skill actually we had at that time. That was the thing. From there, from that pattern recognition, how many of our mathematics students, mathematics classes, it is explained that it is the pattern recognition. That is what the mathematics is. Now, let us go ahead from here. Now let us see what section A. Now we are coming to end of section A has established the bridge forward. We now have 3 foundations. 1, a definition of knowledge, not as information, but as a validated understanding by qualified knower. That is pramana. Second, a definition of a knowledge system, not a library of discipline, but an integrated ecology where each field disciplines the others. Third, a first glimpse of what Indian rigor looked like. Formal logic developed under adversarial pressure, not in comfortable isolation. The question that opens the next section, if this was the epistemological foundation, means we had such an epistemological foundation, what did a civilization build on top of it? Means we had such a fertile land, and then on top of that, what that civilization built, that is what we are going to speak. Means we had such an epistemological foundation. Now we are coming to the second section, that is what and why of Indian knowledge system. Nalanda was not a museum, it was a research ecosystem. What we discussed, knowledge system as an ecosystem. So Nalanda was not a museum, it was a research ecosystem. Means we know that students from various continents, they used to come and stay in Nalanda for years together to get an admission. This is what Huan Sang said. International students from China, Java, Korea, Central Asia at a single institution. Estimated 10,000 students and 2,000 faculty at peak. Specialized departments for logic, medicine, grammar, astronomy, philosophy. Entrance examination. We are coming to some of the important points here. Entrance examination was high failure rates. It is not like a IIM or IIT JEE. Entrance examination, it was not because of that reason. IIM entrance examination is tough because of certain reason. Means certain questions are difficult not because of the higher thinking. It is because there are various ways a question can become difficult. Even Bloom's taxonomy's remember level question can be difficult. If I ask you a question, which is the post office with the pin code 411008, it is a Bloom's taxonomy's remember level, but no one can. It is a very tough question. If you see IIT JEE examination question paper and the same way various question paper, you will see whether it is a higher order thinking difficulty or a lower order thinking difficulty. Okay, so why was Nalanda examination difficult? Oral defense of the thesis before a panel, not a written examination. Nalanda examinations were not like that. This was not a repository of text. It was a living research culture with the peer review, visiting scholars, and knowledge production at its primary output. India was 25% of world's GDP at that time. India's share of global GDP, that is circa 1700 CE, 25%. It is according to Madison Project data, Paul Bayroch's Comparative Historical Economics. This is not a nostalgic claim, it's a material fact. A civilization that held 1/4 of world's economic output for centuries was growing food at scale, manufacturing at scale, especially textiles, metallurgy, ships, trading at scale, Indian Ocean Network, Silk Road, governing at scale. The question is not weren't we great? No meaning of speaking about that. The question is what organizational and intellectual system made this possible and how can we adapt that for our times? This is the main question we are going to speak in these days. I will ask once again. The question is what organizational and intellectual system made this possible and how can we adapt that for our times? Now, the policy context. Indian knowledge system as an applied field. 3 authoritative angles for this program. NEP 2020 section 427. Integration of Indian knowledge system into higher education framed as academic and applied engagement, not cultural heritage preservation. Very clear, not customer heritage, cultural heritage preservation. Ministry of Education IKS division established under NEP implementation, dedicated institutional infrastructure, UGC model curriculum for IKS. These are all the major thing based on this program is made. Based on that, this program is made. Now, this program is recognition and Pratyabhijna. It is not a nostalgia. We are not going to speak in a nostalgic way. We are going to speak about that in a very different way. Recognition is the cognitive act of seeing in what appears unfamiliar, something that was always yours. Pratyabhijna Hridayam of Ksema, the self contracting its infinite nature through Maya appears to itself as limited and then recognizes itself as it always was. Why this masters today? The work of the next 4 days is not acquisition of foreign content, it is recovery of cognitive inheritance, a different and more powerful form of learning. The knowledge system had 4 operating questions. A civilization that held 25% of world GDP, that produced Nalanda and Takshila, that developed formal logic and generative grammar, did not do it but powerfully on 4 questions. 1. What kind of people are we forming? Second, how do we succeed with the constraints we have? Third, where do genuinely new ideas come from? Fourth, how do we sustain this across time? This is what we are going to do now. The next 4 days, answer these 4 questions in forensic detail. But before everything, let us see what this system produced. Let us see what our system produced. Then we can see this what produced those producers. Now we call it VA gallery. We call it a VA gallery. How to read what follows. The next 12 slides present 12 fields, 12 different fields where India excelled that day. Each follows the same structure. We are going to speak about what is the achievement, specific, sourced, and verifiable. Uh, Cognitive skill that produced it, named explicitly. This is very important. My request is that please don't divert your attention. We are going to speak about each one, each war gallery, what was the capability required for doing that, because that is what we teachers should know. What capability built that, so that it is very easy to build that capability. When that person of that capability comes, and then he or she will be able to use that capability for the for modern times. This is what the mandate of Ministry of Education. Understand what made successful and what was the core skill required for that. Extract it and then try to implement. We are going to do exactly that. Look now. Do not look at these slides as a list of things to be proud of. These are all giving us pride, but we are not going to use it like that. Look at them as a set of clues. What kind of mind, what kind of education, what kind of system produced all 12 of these in one civilization? In one civilization, how these things could do? That is the question these 12 slides are asking together. These 12 slides are asking together. This is what we are going to speak. Now, section B, we were discussing, we have established what a knowledge system is, why this particular one merits a serious investigation, how to look at its products as evidence for a system, not trophies of a culture. We are not going to speak this as a trophies of a culture. We are seeing them as evidence of a culture, evidence of a system. The gallery opens now. 12 fields, 12 cognitive skills, 12 questions for today. Now we are going to see that the VA gallery, one field, one punchline. VA gallery. What we had been speaking so far, it is our day one, it is Pratyabhijna, it is recognize. Recognize in the sense, let us see, let us recognize what we inherit. Let us recognize what we own. Therefore, in that there were 4 sections. Section A was what is knowledge system. Section B was what and why of Indian knowledge system. Now we are into section C. It is a war gallery. One field, one punchline. We are into war gallery now. Now, this is our mathematics war. The number that named the void. Achievement, Shunya, 0. Invented not as a placeholder but as a number in its own right. Brahmagupta, 628 CE. Brahmagupta Siddhanta. Kerala school, that is Madhava and Somayaji. Infinite series for sine, cosine and arctangent. The mathematical heart of calculus, 200 years before Newton and Leibniz. This is what the mathematics. Now, we are going to see the most important thing. Okay, Somayaji, Madhava, Brahmagupta, they all did that. We are very proud of it. And now let us say what made that. The human capabilities that made this possible. Please understand, these are all with the detailed study of that particular era, that particular situation, in what situation they worked, with from that situation, how they would have developed. It is a detailed research. We are going to speak about what are all the human capabilities that made that inventing shunya, inventing calculus, inventing infinite series at that time was possible. 14th century, 628 CE, 200 years before Newton and Leibniz, how it was possible. Please listen. Abstracting the concept from the object. This is one of the most higher order thinking of human. Abstracting the concept from the object. Breakthroughs such as Shunya as a number or Madhava's infinite series require a cluster of higher order mathematical skills. First, the thinker must perform symbolic abstraction. Treating absence, shunya or infinitesimal change as an independent mathematical entity. Second, they must exercise structural generalization, recognizing patterns across numerical operations and extending them into universal rules. Third, such work requires operational formalization, building precise algorithms that allow the new concept to participate consistently in calculations. Finally, that is fourth, it demands meta-mathematical reasoning, the ability to test internal consistency and extend the idea into new domains, that is algebraic operations with the zero or infinite series approximations. See, for example, to say 0 apples require no genius. Anyone can say. But to say 0 is a number that can be multiplied, divided, squared, and derive rules for it requires the philosophical move of separating the concept from any physical referent. Please understand, in mathematics, in computer science, what is important is the ability for mathematizing. Anything in the society, anything what we are seeing, this can be mathematized. If we are not able to do mathematization, we will not be able to do much in computer science or information technology or any of the new fields. That is what exactly abstracting the concept from the object. Modern question, what conceptual zero exists in your field? For example, now here you have seen that about 4 plus 1, there are 5 important cognitive skills. Those skills actually made Brahmagupta, it made Madhava, it made Nilaganda Somayaji. and whether are we building those skills in our system, that is the question. Now this is only the first one, there are 11 more. We are going to ask individual questions here. These are all the things, unless we develop, we are not going to become Vishwaguru. If we are to become Vishwaguru, this is the type of the higher order thinking that is required. That is the prime objective of this Sthira Sukham Athyayanam. Sthira Sukham Athyayanam, its main purpose is that because we cannot copy something of 2000 years ago and implement it now because it is already old. But we can build the capability of those years, and because those capabilities still in human, those are new and those are the latest, those are the difficult thing to build. Now let us go to the next one. Now we discussed mathematics. Now we discussed mathematics. Now we are going to astronomy. Astronomy. Actually, as we discussed earlier, mathematics in India, it came through astronomy, it came through grammar, it came through linguistic, it came through medicine, it came through various ways, and then it became the crown. That is something that is in the top. Now let us come to this one. Astronomy. That is, what are the achievement? Vedanga Jyotisha, that is 1300 BCE, systematic year tracking, lunar month calculation, and intercalary correction using naked eye observation only. That is what they never waited for funding. They never waited for the right time. It is with the naked eye observation. Eclipse prediction using the Saros cycle. Accurate to within minutes. Purpose, ritual timing, not scientific prestige. Now, what are all the cognitive skills which were required for this? Means complete research has been done with his ecosystem and what are all the skill he would have carried at that time. The human capabilities. Ancient Indian eclipse prediction required more than observation. It required disciplined reasoning across long stretches of time. We know that these are all celestial objects. We cannot make a rule with 1 day or 1 week. It is across long stretches of time. The astronomer had to notice recurring patterns among events separated by months, years, and decades. This demanded the ability to connect individual sky events to an unseen cyclical order. He had to distinguish meaningful recurrence from accidental similarity. Very important. That required comparison, abstraction, and resistance to hasty conclusions. He also had to coordinate several time systems at once, including lunar phases, solar motion, and calendrical correction. Such work depended on strong temporal memory and precise record preservation. Please understand this. Such a work depended on strong temporal memory and precise record preservation. No single observer could master this alone. So knowledge had to pass reliably from one generation to the next. Thus, eclipse prediction was not merely personal intelligence but organized intergenerational intelligence. Its deepest cognitive power lay in turning accumulated time into predictive knowledge. This is what actually build Vedanga Jyotisha. It didn't sprout from ground. It didn't come from a tree. It didn't fall from sky. Human beings like us did it. And these are all the things, real capabilities that built it. These are the capabilities that really built it. Now let us go next. Oh, I forgot to tell you that We have got a war gallery. So in mathematics, we have included that. Now we are going to add astronomy into war gallery. Yeah, this is what now our war gallery has got a 2. Now let us go to next. What is this? Metallurgy. Metallurgy. I am not going to speak about how great was our iron pillar of Delhi. I am not going to speak about that. We are going to speak about how it came and what was the capabilities required, how we can extract those things from them, and how we can implement that into that to our students. That is what we are going to see. Now, before that, let us see the achievement. The Delhi iron pillar, that is 375 to 415 CE, that is Chandragupta second era. Wrought iron, 7.2 meters tall, 98% purity, standing in open air for 1,600 years, 16 centuries, without significant corrosion. Wood steel, ultra high carbon steel with specific microcrystalline carbide banding. That is, Europe attempted replication for 300 years and failed. Now let us see what type of a person, what type of capability would have built that. The human capacities that made this possible. Ancient Indian metallurgists needed far more than manual skill. They needed disciplined process intelligence. You know that anything with the metallurgy, chemical, Ayurveda, everything, we require more important thing is the accurate process. So they had to understand that a metal's final quality depends not on one act but on chain of controlled transformation. Each stage, ore selection, heating, timing, airflow, cooling, and forging had to be judged in relation to the next. Not only that, relation to the previous one also, relation to the next. This required the ability to think in sequences, where a small error early could destroy the results later. Such work also demanded causal reasoning, knowing which hidden condition would produce which visible change in the metal. In the case of the Delhi iron pillar, this meant achieving a composition and treatment that allowed extraordinary resistance to corrosion over centuries. In the case of wood steel, it meant sustaining exact thermal conditions so that an exceptional internal structure could emerge. The metallurgist therefore had to reason not only about substance but about invisible transformation. What was mastered was not merely iron or steel, but the logic of controlled becoming. This is the point. While working, we are not only producing a steel or a chemical or a textile, we are becoming. What was mastered was not merely iron or steel, but the logic of controlled becoming. The deepest cognitive achievement lay in turning process itself into a form of precision knowledge. This is what actual thing, or this is what we can carry from this to this era. Otherwise, you will see that in many Indian knowledge system program, they speak about metallurgy and go. They speak about metallurgy and go. But what was the real skill hidden there? What made them to do this? What type of a mind made that? And what type of a ecosystem made that mind? That is what actually we have to think in Indian knowledge system. Otherwise, the entire Indian knowledge system we speak, it is only a line drawn on water because it is not going to give any benefit to us. Therefore, in metallurgy, if that iron pillar is standing there for 1,600 years, and if we made wood steel and Europeans took it there and they tried for 300 years and they could not replicate that, they could not copy that. That itself shows that there are some superior people here. Our main thing is to make that superior people. Me being a product development specialist, I would tell you, I was part of the team developed this Innova car here in India. I was in charge of the roof and floor, and I spent some months there in Japan. So when I was there, I was speaking to a manager, a Japanese manager in the vehicle body engineering. I told them that you are making very good body engineering. He said, no, we are making excellent car body engineers. They are making the body engineering. This is what exactly the holistic approach. I am going to come to tomorrow or day after tomorrow. I am going to speak to you exactly that. How this Indian system forming people. Okay. So now today we spoke about this, and now it is a third, it is metallurgy. And what are all the human capabilities that made it possible? Now, let us go next. Oh, once again, we are into war gallery for ancient Indian capability. Now let us add metallurgy into that. Yeah, now we are going to three pictures in our war gallery. Now we are going to next chemistry, that is Rasa Shastra, systematic protocol science. What is the achievement? Rasa Rasaratnakara attributed to Nagarjuna, that is circa 18th century CE. Systematic documentation of distillation, sublimation, calcination, and recombination of metals and minerals. 18-step mercury purification. Please understand this 18-step mercury purification. That is Parada Shodhana, producing pharmaceutical grade preparation. Zinc distillation at Savar, Rajasthan, 9th century. Industrial scale. Europe achieved this in 17th century. Now, our interest is not to tell that, oh, we made this in 8th century and Europeans made 17th century. Our objective here is to see that if we developed that in 7th century, our brother or our sister, that person had that type of a capability. Now our objective is that how to understand that capability and build that capability now. Now, what are all the cognitive skills they needed? The human capacities that made such a Rasa Shastra possible. Ancient Indian chemists were not merely skilled handlers of substances. They displayed protocol intelligence of a very high order. Protocol intelligence. Just see in the case of chemistry and metallurgy, it is coming to protocol intelligence. They had to decompose transformation into exact repeatable stages. This is what important for chemical processes, and understand that each stage altered the conditions of the next. Most of them are irreversible process. Means that each stage altered the conditions of the next. This required procedural abstraction, turning messy sensory craft into a stable sequences that could be taught, repeated, and checked. Procedural abstraction. They also needed fine-grained observational discrimination because success depended on noticing subtle changes in color, textile, vapor, residue, reaction speed, and material behavior. You know that time there was no meters, and there was no image processing. Here now the image processing has made almost all this processing very easy. Such work demanded controlled experimentation, varying one condition, which change truly caused the outcome. This is what the important. In mercury purification and mineral processing, they had to think in terms of invisible internal change. That time there was no microscope. Invisible internal change, not merely visible surface manipulation. That required causal imagination, the ability to infer hidden transformation from disciplined external science. The decision to document this operation systematically shows another major cognitive power, converting tacit artisan knowledge into explicit procedural knowledge. This is the mark of a mind moving from craft performance to reproducible science. Just imagine, this is what Indian knowledge system says about 64 kalas has got its own repercussion in any other discipline. This is the mark of a mind moving from craft performance to reproducible science. Their deepest cognitive achievement lay in building a culture of chemical reasoning where process, observation, inference, and documentation were fused into one disciplined method. This is what made Tasache Rasa Shastra. We can take pride that one, yeah, we made Rasa Shastra, but that is not going to build our future. If we have to build our future by looking at the past, we have to understand this in this level. That is the purpose of this particular session. We are going to see how those people are made. Or one thing, what was the human capacities that made those things possible? So we are going to go next now. Okay, let us go to our war gallery of ancient Indian capability. We have got mathematics, we did astronomy, we have seen metallurgy, we have seen. Now we have seen chemistry also. Now we have got 4 in our gallery, 4 pictures. Now we are coming to medicine, Ayurveda, simulation-based surgery 2500 years ago. Simulation-based surgery 2500 years ago. What was the main achievement? Apart from Ayurveda as a discipline, what was the main achievement? Sushruta Samhita, that is 600 BCE, 101 surgical instruments described. Rhinoplasty procedure documented in reproducible steps. This is important, reproducible step. It was not jugaad, it was not luck. It's a reproducible steps. Cataract surgery, Slaka technique, documented. Surgical training required practice on vegetable stocks, leather bags filled with water, and dead animals before contact with a living patient. Now, this is what the key point here. Now I was speaking about a Wikipedia page earlier, list of inventors. You know, out of that 1,300, only some 4 Indians are there in that. One first person is Shushruta. Now, cognitive skill. What are all the cognitive skills required for doing that? What we can extract from this, apart from being proud of that? This is what the objective of Indian knowledge system. This is what the mandate. We have to understand what is transferable from here. So we are going to speak about that point. We are focusing that in entire program. We are going to focus on that. How to build such a group of people. How we can learn that one and we can apply that in our classroom. And how with that how we can improve our education system. Now, ancient Indian surgeons displayed competence, architecture, intelligence, the ability to analyze a life critical act and determine the full set of prior capacities, without which technical execution would be dangerous, because we are dealing with human beings, patients. This required task decomposition at a deep level, recognizing that surgery is not one skill, but a tightly coupled system of perception and control, timing, judgment, emotional steadiness, memory, and ethical restraint. Sushruta's training model shows prerequisite mapping, the ability to identify which capacities must be formed first before later skill depends upon the visibly. Now, all these things, if you can see, you will see the combination of 3 domains of Bloom's taxonomy. 3 domains of Bloom's taxonomy interfering, and it is exactly, if you see like that, you will see that entire whole human The complete human faculties are in action here with with Sushruda's explanation. So let us see this. Sushruda's training model shows prerequisite mapping, the ability to identify such capabilities, which capabilities must be formed first before later skill depends upon them invisibly. The use of vegetable stacks, water-filled leather bags, and dead animals reveals simulation transfer reasoning and understanding that difficult real-world performances should be broken into stage approximations so that risk is reduced while fidelity of practice is preserved. This is what risk is reduced while fidelity of practice is preserved. This is cognitively profound because it means the teacher could isolate sub-skills, insertion, pressure, penetration depth, steadiness, tactile response, and design practice environments matched to each one. Such a system also shows error anticipatory reasoning. Since it assumes in advance where a novice is likely to fail and builds safeguards before failure reaches a living patient. The listed prerequisites, fearlessness, he has listed fearlessness, patience, cleanliness, memory, absence of cruelty, openness to correction. These are all coming from the list of Sushruta. Openness to correction show metacognitive insight into practitioner failure, namely that technical mistakes often arise from defects in temperament, attention, ego, or moral disposition rather than ignorance alone. This reflects integrated human system thinking. The surgeon was understood not as a hand performing a procedure, but as a whole cognitive ethical instrument whose inner condition affected outer accuracy. See, in many places when I go for training program, there is a request come from the audience. Let us start hands-on. Means this is one thing you see across India. People do not want to see what is the theory behind. They just want to do the hands-on. In such a situation, what happens? You will see across this program. If you enter into hands-on, that is the reason where do we reach? Why we are not becoming innovators, and why there is no contribution of our, even though we are making money from software development, software services for the last 45 years. Why there is no language, no package, no computer established program from India? Why there is no operating system from India? This is what, from 1978, many of the IITs here, they have BTech computer science, and here there are thousands of colleges give the one program called MCA. In MCA, BTech and all, there is a subject called operating system design. And why India doesn't have an operating system? Even India doesn't have a mobile operating system. And these are all the main thing coming from here, because we give least importance. We think that motion is mastery. We think that while making buildings, we actually form individuals. Buildings are only buildings. Buildings cannot do anything for a person's intellectual. I went to an engineering college. The director was telling that, see this one, we are building a 4-storied building here. It is for research and development. I inquired, okay, how is the research and development now? Now it is not there. Once that building is there, then the research and development will start. But at the same time, few years ago, I was in a top university there in Singapore. There, that professor was telling few years ago, from one of the top institution from India, those people came here and they saw and this professor was in charge of taking them from various labs and various part of institutions. They were telling that anywhere you show, they all shout that, oh, what an infrastructure, what an infrastructure. And this professor was a Singaporean professor, was telling me, it is not the infrastructure making us work. It is actually our thinking which is making us work. It is our past work which is motivating us, which is making us work. Now, even if this entire infrastructure is removed from us, still we will work. But if this entire infrastructure is given to those people, they are not going to work, because this is what we really forget. Means what is important is not funding, it is the thinking. Once we start thinking, once we start showing, people will compete for funding. Means this is what we'll see. We are seeing that top US companies and top Japanese companies in various places, investors are competing for funding because they know that there is something very good thinking is happening there. Okay, coming back here, it is medicine, Ayurveda, that is simulation based. Sushruda's thing, we have seen the capability. The deepest cognitive achievement lay in understanding that in surgery, one must design the formation of judgment, character, and controlled embodiment before one can responsibly train technique. Now, this is what. Once again, we are in the war gallery, we will add medicine to that. Now, let us go next. Next is agriculture. Krishi Parasara, that is 12 classifications of cloud types with the corresponding rainfall predictions for crop timing decisions, biodiversity based polyculture farming documented as resilient system, sacred groves, that is Devaravanas, forest conservation institutionalized through ritual protection, biodiversity hotspot maintained for millennia through community religious practice. Now, this is what India was famous for agriculture. We never starved before Britishers came. We never starved. We had enough food. I think that Bengal famine, those things and all came later. Now let us see what was the cognitive skill which actually developed such a thing. See one thing, I can make a bullet list. I can make a bullet list and say that these are the skills. Then it won't transfer the real message to you. Means what was the real story behind? As Dr. Dash was speaking yesterday, it has to come through story. It has to touch our heart. It has to go through the real reasoning. That is, now let us see what was the real human capabilities that built that type of an agricultural capability at that time. Ancient Indian agriculturals displayed far more than careful observation. They showed ecological inference intelligence of a very high order. They had to read the farm not as a single crop field, but as an interdependent living system in which clouds, winds, soil, moisture, trees, insects, seasons, water flow, and plant behavior continually interacted. This is what tomorrow I am going to speak. One of the important thing, anything Indian knowledge system we touch, everything has got a holistic thing. Means there is nothing that there is nothing focused only on one. Everything is interlinked and holistic. I will tell you, I am sure that you all know about Bloom's taxonomy. You all know about Bloom's taxonomy. And in that, people say that Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. People think that Shravana is for cognitive, Manana is for affective, Nididhyasana is for psychomotor. It is not like that. It is not like that. Shravana is only listening. It is not cognitive. People say it is Shravana means you are cognitive listening. No. Shravana is listening. And why it is listening? Because oral tradition. It is listening. Manana is thinking with values. Means When there is a cognitive, affective, and psychomotor, there is no separate affective in Indian knowledge system. Half of affective is pushed to the cognitive, half of affective is pushed to the psychomotor. Because we cannot think without value system. We cannot think without emotion. Therefore, this in Bloom's taxonomy, Crothwall's 1965 taxonomy for affective domain, it is clearly that it is only speaking about value system and emotion. But in Indian system, we don't think without value system and emotion. Therefore, no pure cognitive for India. There is no pure cognitive for Indian knowledge system. Similarly, no pure psychomotor for Indian knowledge system, because we don't work without value system, without emotion. So this is what we need to really understand. Everything related to Indian knowledge system, it is holistic. Therefore, here, agricultural, we are not seeing the field as a field alone. Even the creatures, they are living there, they are also part of this field. Insects are part of field. So clouds, winds, soil, moisture, trees, insects, season, water flow, and plant behavior continually interacted. The classification of cloud types for rainfall prediction shows predictive pattern abstraction. This is another skill. Predictive pattern abstraction. The ability to convert repeated environmental signals into actionable foresight for sowing, timing, and risk reduction. This required distinguishing reliable indicators from misleading surface appearances, which is a demanding form of causal judgment under uncertainty. Biodiversity-based polyculture reveals resilience reasoning and understanding that stability does not come from uniformity but from structured diversity. Means crop they change crops according to the cycle. Structured diversity that buffers shock, pest attack, rainfall validation, and soil exhaustion. Such thinking is cognitively advanced because it treats agriculture not as extraction from land, but as the management of multiple interacting probabilities across time. Unless we understand this, we don't get the true spirit of Indian knowledge system. The institutionalization of sacred groves shows civilizational systems design. It is a system. The recognition that ecological knowledge survives only when embedded in durable social, moral, and ritual structures. This means the ancient agriculturist was reasoning simultaneously at three levels: immediate field signal, seasonal prediction, and long-term ecosystem preservation. Food self-sufficiency, medicinal plant continuity, and raw material support for other knowledge systems could emerge only from this kind of multi-layered intelligence. Their deepest cognitive achievement lay in transforming ecology itself into a predictive, resilient, and socially transmissible science of survival. Now, this is what the agriculture. Now, let us go to war gallery and put that one into war gallery. Agriculture. Now, similarly, now it is coming to temple architecture. Temple architecture, India is famous for temples, especially if you go to South India and then if you go to Orissa, East India. East India and South India have maximum number of astonishing temples. So now let us see this one. This is a temple from Tanjore, Brihadeshwara temple, Tanjore. 216-ton capstone raised 60 meters. Hypothesized method, a 6-kilometer inclined ramp. That was the only thing people are thinking now and seeing that. 6-kilometer inclined ramp from a neighboring village. This capstone's shadow does not fall on the ground at noon on the day of consecration. A solar angle calculation integrated into structural design. That is astronomy, mathematics, engineering, ergonomics, science, psychology. Everything is blended into one because temple is a temple. Temple has got many purpose. It is not religious alone. It is social and it has got many things in that. So they have taken that very special care. Now you will see like this. It is not that we learn something from temple here and immediately. If we are to really see the mind of a temple architect and how they could do this one, ancient Indian temple architects displayed multi-constrained civilizational intelligence of the highest order. They had to conceive a building as a single integrated solution to many different demands at once. Structural stability, load transfer, geometric proportion, astronomical alignment, ritual movement, acoustic behavior, symbolic meaning, and visual grandeur. This is what very, very sensitive temple architecture. This required simultaneous system reasoning. We know that because being a car designer, I will tell you, if we change something here, immediately some other system will get upset, and if you try to do these two, immediately something else will go bad. Therefore, it is very important to have simultaneous system reasoning, the ability to build many interacting variables together without allowing success to one dimension to produce failure in another. This is what the simultaneous system reasoning. The raising of a massive capstone to great height implies logistical imagination under material constraints. The capacity to infer, plan, sequence, and coordinate large force operation without modern machinery, using terrain, gradient, labor, timing, and mechanical advantage as parts of one executable design. The solar alignment attributed to the monument reflects embedded mathematical foresight. Means that consecration day, the sun shadow with the stone won't fall there. What type of a calculation? So, embedded mathematical foresight, where celestial behavior had to be anticipated in advance and translated into fixed terrestrial form. This is a profound act of cognition because it means converting moving astronomical regularities into immovable architectural precision. The underlying planning traditions also show proportional abstraction, the power to derive an entire complex form generative spatial principles rather than from ad hoc construction decision. Means these are all the capabilities actually built the people of that time. Those people build such a temple architecture. Our main problem now is that I have been working in industry and academia for decades now. One of the main thing we see is that we are not seeing people with the character. We are not seeing people with the embodiment of their discipline because they don't carry that type of a value system. Because our system is not building that type of a capability in them. So if you give the similar work to someone now, they will copy from someone. They may use a chat GPT. They will use some of the past thing. Ultimately, they will make. But what happened? It will not have this type of an integrated, synthesized capabilities or these features we won't see in that particular temple. The underlying planning tradition. Then such work demanded error intolerance reasoning, since even small mistake in angle, weight distribution, foundation logic, or dimensional ratio could magnify into catastrophic failure. It it also required cross-domain transfer intelligence because knowledge of geometry, astronomy, materials, ritual use, and Structural behavior had to be fused rather than merely accumulated side by side. If fusing is required, the deepest cognitive achievement lay in creating a structure in which mathematics, cosmology, engineering, and cultural meaning were not added one after another but conceived as one individual act of design. This type of capabilities built that person, and that person built such a temple. Indian knowledge system mandates this. Understand this type of capability and try to put that. Indian knowledge system is not speaking about a domain locked knowledge transfer. Means whatever is in the temple, temple architecture, transfer to new temple architecture. That is not the way. I will tell you one more thing. In China, the Confucian principles are applied by Huawei 6G design. Confucian principles means how are they transferring that? If it is a domain lock example transfer, Confucian principle should just to go in philosophy books. As I was telling you, when I went to Citizen Watch Factory, they told me that journey is the reward is their principle. Journey is the reward is a Zen Buddhism principle. Apple computers, their principle is Zen Buddhism. That is journey is the reward. So these are all the things actually driving. When we are going and we are speaking to people over here, what is actually driving you? Then tomorrow we are going to see that what is actually we are going to form such a person. Means now we are seeing the products of our earlier generations. Now we are going to see that one, what type of a thing produce those products. So now let us see here, War Gallery. One more thing we entered, that is temple architecture. Now we are going to water management. Water management, we know that Mohenjo-daro, and we go to Stepwell in Vapi, you go to Gujarat, you go to Rajasthan, then you know that Sudarshana Lake, that is Chandragupta era in Gujarat. Then you see that how are these things developed, what type of a cognitive skill. Here, ancient Indian water engineers were reasoning about flow, storage, waste, recharge, heat, seasonality, and settlement life as one connected problem. We have to understand that all those locations, what I said, Gujarat, northwestern India, they are all desert. This Tar desert is one set. Run of Kutch, it is another. These are all desert. And how they preserved water there. That is the challenge they took up. And what type of people made such a thing? Now, the urban systems of the Indus cities show that water was not treated as an isolated convenience, but as a network linking household bathing areas, wells, street drains, sump features, and city level outflow. That kind of planning presupposes a mind trained to think in relationship rather than in fragments. Once again, in Indian knowledge system, everything is thought in a holistic way. Means we never thought anything in isolation. What stands up cognitively is the ability to anticipate consequences in advance. If water enters here, where will it stagnate? Where will waste accumulate? And how will overflow be carried away? And how will cleanliness be protected at scale? See, these are all anticipate consequences in advance. That is not mere practicality. It is the anticipatory system reasoning, where the designer mentality runs the behavior of the whole settlement before the structure is built. Stepwells reveal another level of intelligence, a precise understanding that architecture could be used to conserve water, reduce direct solar exposure, slow evaporation, and create a cooler thermal environment around the stored resource. This required an unusual fusion of hydraulic judgment and climatic sensitivity, because the builder had to think not only about storing water, but about how stone, depth, shade, air, and season. These are all the things. Civilizational reliability thinking, designing for use, failure, repair, and endurance. What made such cultures exceptional was their ability to think simultaneously at the scale of the household, the street and city, the reservoir, and the climate zone. Their deepest cognitive achievement lay in understanding that water management is not a structure but a long duration choreography between nature, settlement, technology, and collective discipline. Now we are coming to this. Now let us see the next. There are four more in this. One is linguistic, that is Panini's Ashtathyayi, 3976 rules generating all of Sanskrit from 14 abstract phonemes. Shiva Sutra, a finite recursive generating system. Noam Chomsky acknowledged it as the first generative grammar. The text is so compressed it can be memorized in its entirety. So there are cognitive skills developed for this. All these things will be there in LMS, and you can take each skills required for each capability. You can take from LMS. And here in the WA section, it is linguistics. Now the thing, yoga and consciousness, achievement, Patanjali Yoga Sutra, 195 aphorisms mapping cognitive states, chitta vrittis, with clinical precision, identifying the mechanisms of each and prescribing specific interventions, not a spiritual aspiration, a technical specification for the engineering of attention. Yoga Sutra 1.2, Yoga's Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is the stilling of the modifications of the mind field. This is a technical target state, not a metaphor. Now, what type of an environment, what type of a mind would have made this? This is what we are going to see. Now let us go to the next one. Ethics and governance. One of the important contributions India had, that was Kautilya or Chanakya's Arthashastra. Arthashastra of Kautilya, 300 BCE, prescribed specific punishments for cutting green trees, polluting rivers, killing protected animals, and wasting forest resources. When this type of things came into European and American system, we know. Established designated forest offices, Aranya Pala, protected forest zones, and regulated hunting season. State level ecological governance as a component of political economy, not as a separate environmental policy. This is what they did. What type of mind made this? Then how to replicate such a mind here in the Indian knowledge system? Now, this is what ethics and governance. Now this is arts, the synthesis that has no parallel. You have seen that many of this development is that art has got a big influence. What are achievement? Bharata's Natya Shastra, a unified theory of music, dance, drama, architecture, emotion, rasa, poetics, and performance in one text. The rasa theory identifies 9 fundamental aesthetic emotional states, describes how they are produced in the audience, and prescribes the performance elements, gesture, voice, costume, staging, lighting that generate each. So now this is this is the 12th. These are the 12 Va gallery. The 12 fields, one pattern. What did you notice? Let us pause here. Across 12 fields, one structural pattern repeated. Every achievement was the output of a set of cognitive skills. These are all never came from the sky, never came from the earth. everything created by human beings, and those human beings were the superior people on earth at that time. They developed and they created things first time in the world. Even now, many of those things we really use, we really take pride of. So it was not luck, it was not resources, not genius of individuals. A type of thinking, systematic, constrained, purposeful thinking, a type of system was developed. We are planning about that. That is what the Indian knowledge system means. There was a system living, and zero required, abstracting concept from object. Grammar required, discovering deep structure. Surgery required, prerequisite basic competence design. Architecture required, integrated constraint synthesis. Logic required, purpose driven formal rigor. The civilization was not collecting achievement, it was not. It was producing a certain type of mind. Indian knowledge system, it was actually creating a certain type of mind. We are going to speak about that. Unless we understand that mind, unless we take that particular mind thing and put into our syllabus, put into our day-to-day conduct in our educational institution, put it into our graduate attributes, we are not going to grow. There is no use of Indian knowledge system then. Therefore, the prime objective here is that understand those in the war gallery, means from our achievements, what made those achievements, what really triggered, what was the type of people, what really contributed, that take it and put it into into our system. Now let us see here. This is what the war gallery: mathematics, astronomy, metallurgy, chemistry, medicine, Ayurveda, agriculture, temple architecture, water management, linguistics, yoga and consciousness, ethics and government, arts, etc., etc. Because of the time limitation, because I have to, this is actually my half day plus thing, but now I am speaking in 2 hours, therefore I have to rush through this. Now, how the war gallery ask on question. Now we were speaking about this war gallery. Now this war gallery want to ask us a question. Now let us see what is that question. War gallery is asking, what does a civilization look like that produced all of this? It is asking, you are only seeing the fruit, you are seeing the plant, but think about the soil that really made this plant, made this fruit. Not one of these, all 12 in one continuous tradition over 2000 years. That is why we are saying Indian knowledge system, all this 12 thing in the war gallery, it didn't come with luck. It is actually over 2000 years. It is actually a system. It was a sustainable system. It was not resources, it was not luck, it was not the exception of individual genius. It was a system. We are actually speaking about that system, Indian knowledge system, a system that consistently produced the cognitive architecture needed to generate original work across every domain. Please understand this one. We are the second most academic paper publishing country in the world. But here you see a system that consistently produced the cognitive architecture needed to generate original work across every domain. The next 4 days will examine that system one question at a time. We are going to speak about that one question at a time. We have time limitation, and we have got a different philosophy to convey. That is a reason. That is a reason. Otherwise, this is not the way in which I take a class. But the next 4 days will examine that system. Means we have got only 3 days. I am going to put those 4 days into 3 days. The exam, one question at a time. This is what the gallery wants to ask us back. What is that? If it was only one, we could have seen. You know what? Ukraine people invented helicopter. Even now, helicopter invention is with Ukraine, but Ukraine didn't invent many other things. So that is something like we can say it is actually an individual genius. But when it is coming to this, 2000 years plus consistently we were developing. That is not an individual genius. It is actually a system. Our objective is to replicate that system. So now we are into the next thing, what we are going to do. Now it is almost 8:55. The system, what we are going to do. These are all the 4 things I will tell you tomorrow. Now tomorrow I am going to take, that is the next one. Then on Monday I will be clubbing 2 days. Then on the Tuesday I will be taking the 5th day. That means today we have spoken our day 1. Tomorrow it is of our day 2. That is how we produce the producers. 3rd and 4th day I will speak on Monday, and the 5th day I am going to speak on Tuesday. So this is a door 1. The question of formation. What kind of people made all of this possible? That is what we are going to speak tomorrow. And then, how did Indians succeed where constraints seem to prohibit it? Means we had only very less, but we succeeded with that. This is a very important point, especially in a war situation, especially in this type of situation when there is a dollar price is high. How to succeed with less things? This is what our main thing we are going to speak on day 3. Now day 4. With what we have, how to create what those people don't have. With what we have, many of our innovation happened in that. With what we have, create what others don't have. Then on the 5th day, we are going to speak that sustainability. All these things, how we will do with the sustainability. That is what we are going to speak this thing together. That Pratyabhijna, Tapas, Vikrama, Pratibha. That is origination is Pratibha. Then Rana, that is regeneration, that is cognitive depth. This is a civilizational operating system. This is what actually Indian knowledge system is. Now, let us go here. This session is Pratyabhijna. That is what we opened today with this Sanskrit word. That is Pratyabhijna. Now, Pratyabhijna, recognition, not learning something new, experience of seeing something that appeared foreign, something that was always yours. Today, you have looked at 12 achievements across 12 fields. We had a war gallery, 12 achievements across 12 fields. You have named the cognitive skill behind them. Each one, what type of a cognitive skill developed them. That is what the mandate of Indian knowledge system. You have seen the system that produced them. This is not the history of someone else's civilization. We are not speaking about someone else's civilization. This is the intellectual inherence of every person here. An inheritance that was systematically made to appear foreign, and that is now being returned to legibility. This is the strongest thing. These are all appeared foreign, and now it is returned through Indian knowledge system, returned to legibility. So now you are not being introduced to something foreign. You are being introduced to yourself. I repeat, you are not being introduced to something foreign. You are being introduced to yourself. Tomorrow's question is, what kind of people made all this possible and how are they made? What kind of people made? We have seen 12 achievements from 12 different fields. We are thinking what kind of people made all this possible and how were they made? The answer is not exceptional individuals. The answer is a system that began with the body, with the breath, with the voice, with the deliberate, sustained training of the human instrument before any knowledge was placed into it. That is what. Now let us see our program structure. That is what today's. That is day 1 recognize, that is the Pratyabhijna. Day 2 tapas. Day 3 Vikrama, that we are crossing our Krama step, and we are Pratibha, that is originating new research and new product development, design thinking. Day 5 it is regenerate, Rana, that is the cognitive depth. With that,
The alloy must be pure to endure.
it is
It will
this.
be. The fire reveals its
9
strength.
o'clock.
Observe the simulation. This is our modern alchemy. The data confirms the structural integrity, Professor.
So, any question about today? I know the content was really heavy, and that is what actually. This is really a very tough content, and but it requires days to explain. It is actually a brainwashing and change in philosophy. I hope I tried my best, and in the coming days I will do better. And
If you have any questions for Dr. Suresh, you can put it in the chat.
It's 9 o'clock p.m.
All right, so I think there are no more.
there are no more questions.
No. Are you seeing the chat, sir?
Pardon?
Are you looking at the chat?
Yeah, I am looking at the chat.
Okay.
See, many of these questions it takes lot of time to answer. What I do, please look at the LMS. I will put all answers there. There are various questions here that some of the things are like how this can be implemented into curriculum. My request is that please wait for tomorrow. Tomorrow you will get clarity.
Thank you, Suresh, for this wonderful session. I think there are no more questions. The rest of the questions we can take it on tomorrow. I think so. Will bring up better clarity tomorrow with the topic of forge, tapas, and the transformative formation. Okay, so we will see you all for that session. The session will start at 7 p.m. All right, I think we will conclude for today. Thank you all for joining, and we will see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. Have a blessed evening.